Kamala Harris was blasted this week after she made another shallow podcast appearance, whilst victims of Hurricane Helene continue to plead for greater assistance after their lives and livelihoods were destroyed. Sky News All Stars Rita Panahi, Kayla Bond and Liz Storer have questioned the priorities of Kamala Harris and take a look at the fallout from her latest fluffy media appearance. The US is in the middle of a massive natural disaster crisis after Florida and parts of Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee and Virginia were ravaged by Hurricane Helene last month. 232 people were killed, hundreds are still missing, and livelihoods destroyed. With this very serious situation still unfolding, many are questioning Kamala Harris's decision to appear on the Gen Z female-focused podcast Call Her Daddy, reveals Sky News All-Star Rita Panahi.
Now, the real Kamala has been missing in action for most of the week as parts of the US were plunged into crisis in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, which has left more than 200 dead, many more missing, and parts of the country looking like a war zone. But the VP had other things on her mind, like doing a podcast with the Call Her Daddy team. Oh, you don't know who they are? Let me familiarise you with their work, and apologies in advance for the content here.
How do you work with the and the on a man?
The it really depends on the guy. Like, some guys don't like it.
Yeah.
Some have and you can on them.
Yes.
Put them all.
Yeah.
Like, some
Other
guys
are like,
yeah. Whenever
Yeah.
you try to do it.
That's all we could play you. That's all we could play you because it was that filthy. That's who Kamala Harris wants to talk to, putting decency back in the White House, folks. Let's look at some of that chat. Mercifully, it wasn't as graphic as what we just played you. In fact, the whole thing seemed to be about, I don't know, the patriarchy and obsessions about abortion.
I want to take a moment, and can we try to think of any law that gives the government the power to make a decision?
I know what you're gonna ask.
About a man's body. Let's
No.
Is there any law?
No. It's no.
Yeah, except the millions of men who've been drafted into war, forced to put their body on the line for their country. Did they forget about that?
Unsurprisingly, the interview was full of softball questions and a whole lot of nothingness, said Sky News All-Star Kayla Bond.
If you take a look at Kamala Harris, who is starting to do a few little interviews here and there, she popped up on a podcast called Call Her Daddy. It's one of the most popular podcasts in the world, apparently. I can't say that I'm a listener, you're probably not either, but yes, it is one of the most popular podcasts in the world, worth millions of dollars. The one who hosted recently signed a deal for upwards of $60 million US, I think it is, to host this thing. So it is big deal stuff. But she was asked the big question on Call Her Daddy: why is it that you don't do a lot of sit-down interviews, traditional format where you're there with a hard-hitting journalist who's going to ask you the questions that you need to give a real response to? Why are you not doing that, and why are you talking to me instead? And well, Kamala Harris said nothing, really.
I'm curious, you don't do too many long-form interviews. What made you want to do Call Her Daddy today?
Well, I think you and your listeners have really got this thing right, which is one of the best ways to communicate with people is to be real, and to talk about the things that people really care about. I mean, what I love about what you do is that your voice in your show is really about your listeners.
The show is about the listeners. Isn't every show? I mean, this show is about the viewers. When you go and do a sit-down interview, Fox News or CNN, or it's about the viewers. What does she think the media is? Oh, it's real. It's real. By which she means, I'm coming here because I know that you're not going to ask me a hard question.
Yeah, the other crazy thing she said there is she said, I love this podcast because the listeners are seen and heard. Well, actually, it's a podcast, so the listeners are not seen, and their listeners, they're not heard. But I'm just wondering what people would rather. Would you rather be seen and heard, or would you rather have the border crisis sorted and inflation come down? What's more important?
Sky News All-Star Liz Storer agreed, saying Kamala Harris will only appear in the softest of softball interviews, where she won't be quizzed on anything substantial.
I mean, obviously she does these because she knows it's going to be a free ride. You don't see her doing any one-on-ones, hard-hitting interviews, talking about policy on even the friendly networks. She's not popping up on CNN. She's not popping up on CSNBC. Even the people who are barracking for her, the networks that are giving the Democrats a tongue bath on the hour every single day in the lead up to polling day, she's not going on there to do any hard-hitting questions because everybody knows at this point in time she's not up for it. So why on earth would you want that woman in the White House? Come on, America, restore our faith in you.
Social media commentators also blasted the appearance, with this user saying it was nothing short of disgusting.
Imagine you and your family are stranded in a devastating flood. You have no food, no water. Your house is gone. You're losing loved ones. You're trying to get aid for you and your family, but the budget is dried up because the government has been prioritizing illegals. And at the same time this is happening, the Vice President of the United States is talking about reproductive rights on a sex podcast. How would that make you feel? Well, unfortunately for you, you don't have to imagine it because it's real. While Americans are suffering from hurricane aftermath, Kamala's bantering on a podcast about how there are no laws that exist that control a man's body. The draft? Hello? Do I really have to educate a political candidate on what selective service is? I mean, technically, every law we have is about controlling our bodies and dictating what we can't use our bodies to do. Can't drink and drive, can't do drugs. Abortion is no different, and we are giving airtime to an issue that has already been settled and is distracting us from real issues like illegal immigration, crime, the economy, foreign policy. This woman had the opportunity to spearhead a conversation about the economy on Dave Ramsey's podcast, and instead she's talking about tampons on Call Her Daddy. She is the epitome of disgrace, a walking, breathing emetic, and at this point she should be nowhere near the White House.
And it seems the interview didn't have the desired effect for the Harris camp, with this commentator revealing the lackluster engagement it received. He said Kamala Harris' appearance on Call Her Daddy turns into massive flop as the YouTube segment barely received 100k views in the first 16 hours, with mostly negative reactions. And with Kamala Harris busy on the podcast circuit, Joe Biden was asked to comment on the hurricane fallout, but only produced a word salad as usual, reveals Sky News All-Star James Morrow.
I know that this is going to come as a bit of a shock, a bit of a surprise to everybody in this room, but I'm going to throw a name out there. Joe Biden. Remember him? Turns out he is still the President of the United States, not Kamala Harris. The only thing is, though, I'm not sure that he necessarily remembers that he is still President of the United States. Here he is outside the White House being asked about the devastating floods in North Carolina, where possibly hundreds have died and thousands remain stranded. And so far, all the government has promised victims is a check for $750.
What do the states in the storm zone need, Mr. President? Sorry? What do the states in the storm zone, what do they need after what you saw today?
Oh, in the storm zone?
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering what storm you're talking about. They're getting everything they need. And they're very happy across the board.
Yeah, not a great look there.
And whilst both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have been largely MIA following Hurricane Helene, Donald Trump and Elon Musk took it upon themselves to take action for the victims.
Well, staying in the States, Elon Musk is coming to the rescue after Hurricane Helene has ravaged 6 states across the southeast of America. It has taken out a lot of the communications. The cellular networks have been damaged, leaving thousands without a means of communicating with each other, which is why we understand over 600 people are still unaccounted for. They simply can't make contact. There's no way to do it without a cellular network. So Elon Musk is coming to the rescue, sending 30 of his Starlinks, which essentially use orbiting satellites instead of ground-based networks, to give these people broadband connection so that they can get in touch with their loved ones, let them know they're okay, let them know where they are, if they need help, how they can be contacted. Elon Musk has tweeted, since the Hurricane Helene disaster, SpaceX has sent as many Starlink terminals as possible to help areas in need. Earlier today, Donald Trump alerted me to additional people who need Starlink internet in North Carolina. We are sending them terminals right away. Now, the Biden administration is trying to take credit for this, saying that this was their doing and they're helping out those people, particularly in North Carolina, as soon as possible by these Starlink connections.
We're also very focused on restoring communications capabilities. FEMA, the FCC, and private telecommunications providers are working together to help restore temporary communications as quickly as possible by establishing temporary cell sites and allowing for roaming where possible, where a resident can connect to any network available even if they aren't subscribed to that network. Today, FEMA will install 30 Starlink receivers in western North Carolina to provide immediate connectivity for those in greatest need.
Trump and Musk's efforts resulted in tangible help for the hurricane victims, unlike Kamala Harris's token staged photograph, reveals Rita Panahi.
Now, plenty more lefties content with my next guest. And yes, we've already seen Joe Biden lounging at the beaches. States are devastated in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, which has caused widespread destruction in Florida, Georgia, North and South Carolina, as well as Tennessee and Alabama. Over 100 dead, many more still missing. President Trump has been on the ground. He's been speaking with those involved in rescue efforts.
And they said they've never seen one this bad. Valdosta has been ravaged. The town is very, very badly hurting, and many thousands are without power. They're running low on food and fuel. We'll endure. We will rebuild Valdosta and every other town that has been so badly hit, and we'll emerge stronger, more united, and more prosperous than ever before. You're going to be stronger, better. You're going to learn a lot from it. And again, we pray to God for those that have been so badly injured, and for, in particular, for the people that are no longer with us.
Joining me now is Senior Editor-at-Large at Newsweek, Josh Hammer. Josh, the response of the President and the Vice President, it must be said, has been substandard.
Yeah, I mean, that might qualify as the understatement of the century, substandard. I mean, Kamala Harris, I suppose, was bothered on social media to stage this photo op where she was trying to bamboozle the masses here into thinking that she was actually doing something. But in this photo, as some very astute people on X pointed out, she has those iPhone earbuds that plug into your phone, but her phone is on the desk and she's pretending to be on a phone call. It's not even plugged in. It's not even plugged in. And there's a piece of paper in front of her as if she's taking notes from the FEMA director. It's a blank piece of paper. I mean, you know, if you're gonna fake it and try to make it look like you're making it, you know, at least don't just do it this poorly. I mean, try to make it look like you're at least attempting to cover your tracks, for God's sake.